doctor. He just decided that it was all in my head, that I'm just a woman.
I went and picked him up and I held him, and he was really limp. And he said, "I just feel really sick, Mom."
She says, "Just shoot me, put me out of my misery."
She started having those worst case scenario fears. What if there's something seriously wrong with my child and he's dying?
Next, two medical mysteries that defied the experts. Little Christian Byrne has suffered from violent fits of vomiting since the day he was born. For 3 years, doctors struggle to figure out what's afflicting him. But the truth is more shocking than anyone could have imagined.
And I remember at that moment, I started to cry that he's really sick.
Pat Stopka is enjoying life with her new husband until she's stricken with strange muscle cramping and mood swings. She resolves to control it with home remedies. That is, until she finds out one of her symptoms could kill her.
I needed to get right to the emergency room, or else my heart could stop.
When illness strikes, we look to doctors to give us answers. But what if they can't? For these unlucky patients, diagnosis is a mystery. Tom and Kelly Byrne are ecstatic when their second child, Christian, is born in March of 2004. Big sister Caitlin finally has a little brother to play with. The delivery goes off without a hitch, but in the recovery room, the Byrnes realize something is not right with little Christian.
I was trying to sleep, and he was napping, so, while baby's napping, you nap. And I heard this sound that sounded like he was either choking or vomiting.
Kelly figures Christian has just spit up and thinks nothing of it. But then it happens again.
The second time that I heard it, 3 hours later, he had vomited everywhere. This was not right. This is not something that should be happening. It just didn't seem right to me, so I called the nurse right away.
A nurse rushes into the room, but after a quick exam, she assures Kelly that everything's okay.
She informed us that it was just amniotic fluid, that he was still trying to get some out of his lungs, that I had pushed him out too fast. And so she patted him on the back for about 5 minutes or so, and she laid him back down and reassured me and told me not to worry, that he was fine. I'm not a nurse, so I took her word that she knew more than I did.
Otherwise, Christian is a healthy little boy, and the Byrnes leave the hospital with their newborn the next day. But soon, they realize that Christian's troubles are just beginning.
He started throwing up within 2 days. Everyone's first reaction to us, they would say, "Oh, well, all babies throw up a little bit, it's just spit up, it'll be fine." And it was more than just spit up, because it would puddle.
It was more than just, a little on her shoulder. He pretty much gushed everywhere.
I just felt like everyone assumed that I didn't know what spit up was, like I hadn't fed a child with breast milk before.
Tom and Kelly take a wait-and-see approach until they realize Christian's vomiting is actually getting worse.
Sometimes we would have to, feed him, and then he would throw up, and then we'd have to try to feed him again right away.
Every feeding, there was throw up. And it wasn't just a little bit, it was a lot. And it would soak through blankets and sheets and into mattresses and through pillowcases and pillows. We had to do a lot of laundry.
Then, at Christian's 3-week checkup, the Byrnes discover that all this vomiting has taken a toll on their little boy.
He hadn't gained anything at all. He was still down. He went from 7 pounds 3 ounces to 6 pounds 2 ounces.
And he started to look almost skeletal, like you could see his ribs, and his cheeks were small.
Christian's pediatrician reassures them that it's not time to panic yet. He suggests they wait a while and see if the situation resolves itself. But after another 3 weeks of vomiting, the Byrnes can't take it anymore and head back to the pediatrician.
We were very adamant. He's throwing up. This is not spit up. He's not keeping his food down. And the doctor finally said he could just be going through reflux.
And so they prescribed the anti-reflux medication.
Immediately, he stops to throw up. It was like a miracle. It's like it's finally, we got the answer we wanted.
Like this seemed to be, we've identified the problem, here's a solution, and hopefully he'll outgrow it.
Christian slowly starts to gain weight, but just when the Burns think they can stop worrying, another symptom emerges.
I noticed that he was grunting a lot, and he was trying to have a bowel movement, and it wasn't working.
When he would get constipated, it would be really, really bad.
So I immediately started giving him more green vegetables, prune juice, and none of those options worked for him. So we ended up moving on to suppositories.
The suppositories work wonders, and then at 6 months old, the constipation seems to just disappear.
I just finally figured I had done everything correctly, and I was giving him the right amount of vegetables and fruit, and he had the right balance.
Shortly after Christian's first birthday, Tom and Kelly decide to wean him off the baby antacid, hoping he has outgrown the reflux too.
He responded well. After the first day, we could breathe a sigh of relief because he didn't start to vomit again, so we figured we were in the clear.
For the next year, Christian is symptom-free.
Christian seemed to be doing really well. He would run around like any normal kid.
He was thriving, he was gaining weight, he was healthy, he was happy, he was hitting every one of his milestones just fine. We enjoyed him so much. He was perfect.
But in January of 2007, when Christian is 2.5, things take a turn for the worse.
He was complaining about a stomach ache, which was unusual. So I went ahead and made the appointment to go into the doctor to have him checked out. And by the time we got there, he was perfectly fine. They checked his ears, they checked his eyes, his weight. We talked with the doctor, and he said that possibly he might have had a 24-hour bug. There were a lot of viruses going around at the time, and a lot of kids were pretty sick. So I took that explanation and I left, and I was really kind of feeling bad that I had rushed him to the doctor so quickly over something so small.
But days later, instead of getting better, an old symptom suddenly returns.
The whole week, he was having a hard time going to the bathroom. Every time he would squeeze to have a bowel movement, he would have watery stool that was seeping out into the potty chair. He just would cry, "I can do this, I can do this," and I knew that he needed help.
Then, after eating out at a restaurant one afternoon, another familiar symptom comes raging back.
Once we got home, he just kept saying, "My stomach hurts, my stomach hurts." And we kept asking, "Well, do you have to throw up?" And he said, "Yes, I do." He looked up at me and he projectile vomited everywhere. And it was everything that he had eaten that morning for breakfast. And it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
You could take one look at him and just tell that he was not in good shape.
He just turned around and he looked at me, he was really gray, and he fell to the floor on his knees. And he said, "I'm really, really sick." And so I went and picked him up and I held him. And he was really limp. And I kept asking him if he was okay, and he said, "I just feel really sick, Mom."
Little Christian Byrne is only 3 years old, but debilitating vomiting and constipation return with a vengeance after being strangely absent for a year. Doctors think Christian has a virus, but Christian's behavior after vomiting one night has his mom Kelly confused.
And as soon as he was done, he sat in my lap for about 10 more minutes and he said, "Okay, I'm okay now, Mom." And he jumps out of my lap and he runs to play. I was shocked.
And then Christian makes an odd request.
He was begging for food. He was like, "Mom, I'm really hungry now. Can I have something to eat?" And I looked at him, I'm like, "Honey, you just threw up." And he goes, "But I'm really hungry now." And so at that moment, I knew he was really, really sick and that something wasn't right.
Frightened, Kelly decides to call the pediatrician. But the doctor believes that Christian's vomiting can be easily explained.
She said that a lot of kids were getting sick, they were throwing up, but they were still able to play. and they were okay. They just had this virus that was causing vomiting. So I went to my husband and I said, this doesn't seem right. So I just kept thinking, what can I do without rushing him to the emergency room?
Still desperate for answers, Kelly calls her health insurance nurse's line.
The nurse took all of her information and she was searching to see what it could possibly be. And what popped out of her computer was that there was nothing wrong, that it was just probably a virus.
Kelly and Tom ultimately decide to just wait it out and see if Christian improves on his own. But weeks go by, and it's the same thing over and over.
He was constantly either nauseated or constipated or fatigued or, one thing after another, and nothing they did seemed to work. Kelly was very frustrated. She didn't think that it was just a virus, but everyone she talked to said, no, it's a virus.
By this point, he had a little bucket that whenever he would say, I'm not feeling well, it would be like, go get your bucket and carry it around. And he got to be very good with, he would keep it in his bed, and if he woke up, he'd throw up in the bucket, and then he would call us and say, I threw up, and we'd clean it up.
He wasn't vomiting every single day. It was every other day or every 2 days, but it was never every single day or through the night. And the one thing that I could pinpoint a pattern to was it was always after lunch, around 2 o'clock.
Kelly begins to keep a log of when Christian gets sick.
As individual events, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But then when you look at it and you say, well, he's had 7 vomiting things in the last 6 weeks. That's when you say, well, that's definitely not normal.
Armed with the sick log, Kelly and Tom take Christian back to his pediatrician.
We handed it to her, and she sat down for about 10 minutes and she looked it over. And at that point, I thought, she's gonna figure it out. And she didn't have an answer.
She said that it could have been an allergy. And so we thought, that seems like a likely possibility. Maybe he's eating something and he's allergic to it, and so he's throwing it up, and it's causing the same problem.
She wanted to put him on a brat diet of bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. The next day, he had had some toast for breakfast and some bananas and toast for lunch. And by 2 o'clock, he was sick again.
And I remember me taking the point of view that, well, maybe it's too soon to tell that this is the problem and that we should keep going and so on.
Kelly and Tom hold out hope that the new diet will lead to some answers. But 2 weeks later, he's still getting sick.
I just looked at my husband, I'm like, this is not working. He's still sick. It doesn't matter whether he has a hamburger or a piece of toast, he's still throwing up. I had had enough, I was fed up. I wanted to figure out why my son has been throwing up for 3 months.
After going through this for several weeks, she started having those worst case scenario fears. What if there's something seriously wrong with my child and he's dying?
Three-year-old Christian Byrne has suffered severe vomiting and constipation off and on since the day he was born. At first, doctors think it's probably just viruses or food allergies and are reluctant to do any invasive testing on the little boy.
And at this point, I'm wanting to see a test. Any test, I didn't care what it was.
Through sheer persistence, Kelly Byrne finally convinces Christian's pediatrician to give him an X-ray.
The pediatrician said, well, let's check the digestion system and have the X-ray and an upper GI and make sure that everything in there is working right.
And I was relieved. I was like, thank you, finally.
I was terrified. I think we were both at the point where we don't really care what it is, but we need to identify it.
And I said, are you writing the script for this now? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, I'll be there in 10 minutes to pick it up. So we got to the radiology department. My husband went in with them, and they were in there for about an hour.
It's quite a torturous procedure. There's a huge metal table that they make you lay on, and then they put this immense X-ray machine, they bring it right up to your chest. They took several standard X-rays as well as the GI. So they're constantly bombarding him. And finally, Christian just decided that he'd had enough, and he started to squirm and started to throw a little fit and just, Daddy, I don't want to do this. Daddy, I want out, And so they said, okay, well, we've got enough, that'll be okay for now.
But just hours after the x-rays are completed, the Burns receive a troubling phone message at home.
A gentleman at the radiology department said to call them back, that they needed to have Christian come back in for another test. And I called them back, and they said, we need Christian to come back in. I said, okay, well, what day? And he said, no, you don't understand. I need you to come back right now. And I'm like, oh, okay, so today. And he said, you don't understand. You need to come now. The whole way I kept praying, okay, God, just protect him. So I took him in for the x-ray, and they sent us back out to the waiting room. We sat there for 2 hours waiting for somebody to tell us something. He proceeded to have like 3 or 4 more x-rays after that, and he was starting to really melt. He was crying. He's had enough.
It was around lunchtime, and the kids hadn't eaten. So I took my daughter Caitlin down to the cafeteria to get something to eat. The radiologist who had done the GI came out of the cafeteria. She's like, oh, seemed surprised to see me. And I said, what's going on? I haven't heard anything. No one's talked to us. Can you give me, a little bit of information?
Then, standing there in the middle of the hospital cafeteria, Tom hears the words he's been dreading.
And so she said, your son is very sick. I didn't even wait to walk over to the waiting room. I got my cell phone and I called Kelly.
And my husband said, well, I just ran into the radiologist, and she said that Christian's stomach is in his chest. And I remember at that moment, I started to cry. Like, he's really sick. And I got the answer, but I was hoping it was not so severe. I didn't want it to be this outcome. I just wanted him to not throw up anymore.
Three-year-old Christian Byrne has just had one of the most bizarre and troubling x-rays that the hospital staff has ever seen. It shows that his stomach has somehow become lodged inside his chest cavity. His parents, Tom and Kelly, are stunned.
I was like, that's not right. That's not possible. How would it get there?
The situation is dire and requires immediate surgery. Christian's pediatrician refers the Byrne family to pediatric surgeon Dr. Gary Hartman.
I met Christian and his family on a rather urgent basis.
I remember speaking with him, and he drew a little diagram of this is what's going on. This is where your son's stomach is. This is what I think is going to happen.
Once we saw the x-rays, we were quite surprised to see this large amount of stomach that was in the chest. Our presumption there was that this is a condition that's been there since birth, and that it was one of the types of diaphragmatic hernia.
A diaphragmatic hernia is a birth defect where there's a hole in the diaphragm, the thin muscle that separates the abdomen from the chest. With this barrier breached, the stomach can be sucked from the abdomen into the chest cavity. Diaphragmatic hernias affect 1 in every 5,000 live births, but Christian's case is particularly severe.
When we saw Christian's x-ray, we could see that the entire stomach was in the chest cavity, and the relationship of the stomach was inverted. So it was completely upside down and completely flipped over.
Suddenly, all of Christian's symptoms make sense.
The stomach was upside down, probably pinched at the outlet end of it, and may have been twisted also. His way of relieving the blockage of the stomach was to empty the stomach the only way he could.
Dr. Hartman also informs the Byrnes exactly why the problem must be corrected as soon as possible.
The danger with this type of diaphragmatic hernia is that the stomach can be blocked so that nothing can get out, and the stomach could rupture, perforate, and then the acid and the bacteria and the food that are there would then get into the chest and create overwhelming infection, and that can be fatal.
3 days later, Christian is wheeled into the OR for the 4-hour operation.
Their child was going to go through a major operation. That has dangers and risks associated with it. We started the operation with a laparoscopic approach. Laparoscopic surgery involves making small incisions and using telescopes with lights attached to them and cameras. Some people describe it as operating with chopsticks.
As Dr. Hartman begins the delicate procedure, Tom and Kelly are just trying to keep it together.
Once he's out of your sight and out of your control, you immediately start thinking the worst things, like what's going on, why haven't I heard anything?
The wait in the waiting room was like sitting there with a loaded gun to your head.
Once inside the chest cavity, Dr. Hartman can finally see how severe Christian's problem is.
I saw that there was no stomach in the abdomen, and then we could see the hole. And we could see that not only the stomach, but the large intestine was up there also.
Now Dr. Hartman has an explanation for Christian's constipation, too.
The large intestine was pinched into this defect on an intermittent basis, so it wasn't completely blocking passage of stool, but would interfere with it.
After a tense 2 hours, Dr. Hartman manages to pull the stomach and intestine back down into the abdomen. But now he has a new challenge ahead of him.
I think size of an adult fist would probably be a good analogy for the size of that hole. And remember, he's a 3-year-old boy, so we need to put some sort of material in to fill that hole. The one that we use most often is the material your ski jacket is made out of. It's Gore-Tex.
What should have been a 4-hour procedure soon goes into overtime. Finally, after 8 hours in the operating room, Christian is sewn up and wheeled into recovery.
When I come out of the operating room and meet with the parents, the first thing that I always say is that he's fine.
I just remember laying next to his bed and thanking God for protecting him, because he was a miracle.
And from what Dr. Hartman can tell, Christian now is as good as new.
The condition is not associated with other abnormalities. It's been found, it's been corrected. We expect the correction to be permanent. And Christian's outlook now should be of a normal lifestyle.
Looking back, the Burns realized that Christian's condition wasn't complicated. It didn't require specialized testing. All anyone had to do to see it was an X-ray. So why did it take so long for someone to do that?
You know, most children vomit, and most children spit up. So a pediatrician deciding how much spitting up or how much vomiting is pathologic versus the normal is a hard judgment call.
Within just a few days of the operation, Christian is on the fast track to recovery. And today, he's a healthy and active 3-year-old.
I like to tell my friends that he's about 110% now. He's a daredevil. He'll climb on things and run and jump and, slide and the merry-go-round and the swings. He loves them.
I feel like I can stand up now and say, I'm a mom and I know my kids better than anyone. I know when something's not right, and if you know something's not right, you just know it.
While Christian Burns' symptoms of constipation and vomiting all seem to point to a single gastrointestinal condition, Pat Stopka's symptoms were so unrelated to each other, she didn't think she was seriously ill, until it was almost too late. In the summer of 2001, Pat is working as a county clerk in Las Vegas. That same year, she marries her husband, Jim, and they settle into a peaceful life on their ranch. But that summer, her coworkers begin to notice something strange about Pat's skin.
Some of the girls were commenting, asking if I was going to a tanning salon. And I said, no, but I know what you mean. I've never been this dark before.
And we both thought that was kind of interesting because she isn't a sun worshiper where she would sit outside intentionally to get some color. But she seemed to be taking on a little darker tone than me, who likes to try to get some tan.
Pat doesn't know why it's happening, but she isn't complaining.
I'm pretty fair and light complected normally, and so I've never been able to get a tan before. I always burned and peeled, and so now I was excited about it.
But soon, both Pat and Jim start noticing more unwelcome developments.
I would start getting cramps in my calves of my legs and my feet in the middle of the night.
Where she'd jump clear out of bed and start grabbing her legs and bouncing up and down on the floor trying to get the cramps out. That would wake me up in the middle of the night.
Again, the Charlie horse seems like a minor thing, and Pat doesn't see the need to go to a doctor. Instead, she remembers what she learned in high school biology about cramping and decides to try out a few home remedies.
Then I was thinking, well, possibly I'm low on potassium. So Jim would go and buy me bananas.
And although naturally high in potassium, the bananas don't help. So Pat seeks advice from her neighborhood pharmacist.
And he said, if you go and buy soda water with quinine in it, then that should help you.
She would drink about a glass a night to try to get rid of the leg cramps that she had in the middle of the night.
And the cramps went away pretty quickly, I would say within 2 weeks of drinking the quinine water.
But a month later, another seemingly unrelated symptom emerges. And this one's not physical.
I started becoming very irritable and very emotional. I was able to maintain at work, but my poor husband took the brunt of it at home.
It seemed like just anything would set her off, where she would get upset and start yelling and screaming and complaining about things.
Charlie horses are one thing, but the mood swings disturb her so much, she finally decides to schedule an appointment with a doctor.
I went to my doctor and explained how I was feeling and acting, and he suggested that I try an antidepressant. He thought that might be of some help to me. After I'd been on it a little over a month, I could see some improvement with the irritability. It really did help quite a bit.
Pat is relieved that her mood swings are diminishing, but her body continues to deteriorate. And soon, her legs are feeling worse than ever.
I would notice when I would arrive at work after driving, I would get out of the car, and in order to really move the muscles in my leg, I would have the urge to crunch my leg and my buttocks muscles. And then it seemed to progress throughout the year to where even after I'd sit in my office for a while at work and get up to walk, my legs felt stiff. And I would have to crunch them again in order to make the muscles start working.
While Pat finds herself stretching and massaging her legs frequently, she assumes it's all just another part of getting older.
Sometimes, maybe in the beginning, it seemed like her home remedies were working, or else maybe she was just kind of in denial about all the little things that were going on.
Even though my body was having all these different symptoms, they didn't seem to be connected in any way. Some would go away, some would come back intermittently. I didn't put it all together that there might be something going on with my body.
Pat Stopka has suffered from mood swings, Charlie horses, and muscle stiffness for almost a year. She's done what she can to avoid going to the doctor for what she thinks are minor ailments. But nothing can prepare Pat for her strangest symptom yet.
I started craving pickles. I would stop on the way to work in the mornings and buy a large dill pickle in a package and eat the whole pickle that morning when I got to work, and then drink the pickle juice. My coworkers started asking me, was I pregnant? Because we had just gotten married.
Well, at first I thought she was trying to beat me in weight loss by just eating pickles. However, all kidding aside, I noticed It was not only just having a craving for pickles coupled with normal meals, it really was becoming just pickles, which was very strange.
But as the weeks go by, pickles aren't enough. Pat moves on to other foods to satisfy her unquenchable salt cravings.
Well, I told her that I like a cold beer with ice and salt in it, and she started drinking it and liking it and putting more salt than I've ever seen anybody put on a beer and ice.
Still not satisfied, Pat decides to go right to the source.
I had remembered at home I had rock salt because when I would make a prime rib, I would pack the outside of the prime rib with rock salt and then put cheesecloth over it. So I went, aha, that's the way to get my salt. So I put some in a container and I took it to work and kept it in my desk, and I would have a piece of rock salt.
Despite this bizarre new symptom, she's still reluctant to seek help.
I can't tell you how many times I had encouraged Pat to see a doctor about what was going on, but Pat's a very strong-willed woman.
But as the spring gives way to summer, it gets harder and harder for Pat to function.
I would notice when I would get home from work, I would walk in, not change my clothes at all. I would sit in the recliner in our family room and go to sleep. I couldn't stay awake.
Pat doesn't seem to be getting any better, seems to be more or less the same. Tired and craving salt and just not feeling well. Or
It became so bad. I would just sleep at any opportunity I had. If I sat down for any amount of time and was comfortable, I would go to sleep. And then I became very weak. I could hardly pull myself up into my husband's pickup truck.
But the profound feelings of fatigue are just the half of it. Pat soon realizes that she's also losing weight at an alarming rate.
My appetite was really going down. I made a comment to my coworkers, how baggy my pants were, and they said, well, that's because they're your old pants. And I said, no, I just bought these the other day, and they're already getting baggy on me.
It didn't seem as though Pat was actually trying to lose weight. She just was.
Finally, Pat begins to suspect that something could be seriously wrong with her.
The things I thought were great for my looks, the weight loss, the darker tan, I looked in the mirror and I really could see how drawn my face looked. My eyes weren't shiny. I was hunched over at my shoulders and extremely thin.
Pat decides to take action. Over a period of 6 months, she seeks help from 3 different doctors. Her first doctor has an unusual theory. He thinks it's all a result of her long commute to work.
And he didn't do any tests on me. He just asked me if the long drive might have something to do with it and could I stop the long drive. And I thought, well, only if I quit my job.
Another doctor performs just a single test.
All I remember him doing was taking my blood pressure and noticing that it was a little low. He said, well, that's why you're craving salt, because you have such low blood pressure. And then he sent me on my way and didn't seem too interested in any of the other symptoms I was having.
And the last visit is the most upsetting of all.
I explained all my symptoms and how I'm getting progressively worse, and he just decided that it was all in my head, that I'm just a woman. He didn't order any tests. He just sent me on my way with no instructions.
Pat insists that she's done with doctors and resigns herself to living with her bizarre symptoms for the rest of her life.
At a certain point, I decided that there's something wrong going on with my body, but I couldn't convince anybody to really take it seriously and delve into it. I was even thinking with the weight loss, well, maybe I have cancer.
I remember she was just so frustrated and tired and depressed that she says, just shoot me, put me out of my misery.
Then, one morning a week before Christmas, Pat takes another turn for the worse.
I grabbed a banana to take to work, and I ate that around 7:30 a.m. And at 9:30 a.m., I was trying to do some work on my computer, and I found that I could not focus mentally. So I stood up and walked out of my office, and my legs were stiff almost as a board. And I went to my boss and I said, something's not right. I have to go to the doctor.
Pat's son, in town for the holidays, picks her up from work and rushes his mother to the ER. But the attending physician isn't as concerned as Pat's son thinks he should be.
He's asking me the same normal questions that all the doctors in the past had asked me. And finally, my son got very angry, and he said, I have to tell you, I've watched my mom go downhill for the last year. There's something not right. And apparently that caught the doctor's attention, and he ordered a blood test.
Shortly after her blood is drawn, Pat is sent home and told to wait for the results. Later that same evening, she receives a phone call from the lab, telling her to call back as soon as possible.
So I called her, and she said, you have got to get to the emergency room. Your blood test shows your potassium is dangerously high, and your heart could stop.
Pat Stopka has just found out her potassium levels are so high, her heart could stop at any moment. She and her son rush back to the ER.
I went into the emergency room, and a doctor saw me there. He gave me medicine to flush out the excess potassium, and I told him my story of what had been going on with me.
Hospitalist Dr. Rajendra Suvarna is assigned to Pat's case.
Anytime one is confronted with a patient who has a problem with a persistently elevated potassium, the focus immediately shifts to the kidneys. Is there something wrong that interferes with the kidney's ability to get rid of the excess potassium in the body?
But after running some initial tests, Dr. Suvarna confirms that Pat's kidneys aren't damaged. His next step is to examine the organ that gives the kidneys their instructions, the adrenal glands. These triangular organs, situated above each kidney, secrete many hormones, one of which is aldosterone.
Aldosterone is a hormone that helps the kidneys to regulate the potassium and sodium levels in the blood. Its primary purpose is to retain sodium, which is responsible for maintaining the blood pressure.
Test results show that Pat's aldosterone levels are dangerously low. This could mean that Pat's adrenal glands aren't functioning properly.
Anytime there is a concern that there is a malfunction in a gland, one must evaluate the entire gland.
With this in mind, Dr. Suvarna decides to test the levels of several other hormones secreted by the adrenal glands, including cortisol.
Cortisol is responsible for maintaining the blood glucose levels. It is also responsible in helping the body deal with stress.
When Pat's next set of test results comes back, the picture begins to come into focus.
The cortisol levels were low.
But Dr. Suvarna needs to administer one final test before he makes his diagnosis.
We decided to look higher up at the master hormones that drive the secretion of these hormones, and that would involve testing the ACTH level.
Essentially, Dr. Suvarna is checking one more stop upriver. The brain releases a hormone called ACTH that regulates the adrenal glands' production of cortisol. If Pat's adrenal glands are working, an injection of ACTH should cause her cortisol level to spike. But if her adrenals are damaged, nothing will happen.
The gland itself was not responding. The combination of the decreased aldosterone level, decreased cortisol level, and the elevated ACTH level told me that Pat had Addison's disease.
Addison's disease is an endocrine or hormonal disorder that occurs when the adrenal glands do not produce enough of the hormone cortisol, and in some cases the hormone aldosterone. When these hormones are even slightly imbalanced, entire systems throughout the body, including the circulatory system, the immune system, and the muscles, can start to malfunction. Some causes for Addison's disease include tuberculosis and other conditions that physically damage the adrenal glands. But about 70% of reported cases are caused by an autoimmune disorder, where the body's own immune system goes haywire and starts attacking healthy organs.
My body had attacked my adrenal glands, and over this past year, they had slowly been dying. By the time he had diagnosed me, they were functioning at approximately 10%.
Suddenly, all of Pat's seemingly unrelated symptoms make sense.
The darkened skin that Pat had has to do with an elevated ACTH level, which stimulates cells that are responsible for producing the pigment that darkens the skin. The weight loss, the moodiness, and the stress that Pat was experiencing might also be caused by the low cortisol level. The salt cravings associated with the aldosterone deficiency. And this is the body's attempt to try and replace her salt loss in the urine. The subsequent increase in the potassium level that develops can cause the muscles to become profoundly weak and also make you feel very tired.
For Pat, the relief is immense.
I felt really good finally having a diagnosis, that I wasn't going crazy, that all the symptoms I had had leading up to the final diagnosis were not in my head.
The day Pat is diagnosed, the nurse gives her 2 replacement steroids she will take for the rest of her life. Hydrocortisone to replace the cortisol, and fludrocortisone to replace the aldosterone. But if the treatment is so simple, why wasn't the disease caught earlier?
Addison's disease is difficult to diagnose because the symptoms are vague and nonspecific and can be associated with multiple other problems, including depression. The prevalence is about 35 to 60 per 1 million population, so it's a fairly uncommon condition.
But despite having endured over a year of discomfort, Pat feels lucky. If her Addison's hadn't been caught when it was, the cramping that started in her legs could have turned deadly.
Anytime the potassium levels rise to a level that's higher than what the body desires, what would happen is the functioning of the muscles and also the cardiac muscle, which is responsible for pumping the blood, can be impaired, and it can cause the heart to basically stop.
Today, Pat and Jim are retired and enjoy time at their ranch in southern Nevada.
My life is great. I'm feeling much better. I have a wonderful husband. We have 3 horses, 4 dogs, and so I couldn't ask for a better life.
I'd say Pat gets just about back to normal when she's on her medication, right? She's back to being energetic again. We both are looking for a long, happy life together.
You know, after it took approximately a year and a half to finally be diagnosed, it says to me that physicians need to really listen to their patients, take seriously what they're telling. Each person knows their own body better than any physician, and keep going back and back to the doctor.